Recently I've made quite a few reactions to ice hockey, everything from great goals and great players, the fights and the biggest hits. Absolutely loving everything about it so far, but quite a few people in the comments have told me before I make any more reactions I should watch this video. It's called The Code, the Unwritten Rules of Fighting and Retribution in Ice Hockey. I mean, that's just a fantastic title for a video, so can't wait to watch this. And yeah, I made a reaction to NHL fights. I'll leave the link in the description, go check that out. But I couldn't get over how organised it was. It's something I knew nothing about, but when I seen the first fight, how the players came together, the referees set up like it was an MMA match, and they just went at it, they gave them that time. I was completely shocked, but absolutely loved it.
Nin explains the code.
I mean, that's just a good photograph to start.
The sport of ice hockey is the only sport on the planet that tolerates fighting and retribution, even though their rules prohibit doing so.
Oh, it's actually against the
Referees
rules.
will penalise players for breaking the rules, but sometimes the players take matters into their own hands. There are unwritten rules that govern how players should behave that you won't find in any rulebook.
And that's a real
And there are even
fight.
specific
Look at
players
that.
on hockey teams whose sole job it is to police the game accordingly. These are the enforcers, otherwise known as goons, tough guys, fighters.
There's a movie called Gunry.
And whilst it's their sole job to police the game, the code applies to every player on the ice. These unwritten rules are based on mutual respect for your opponents and protecting your teammates. This is the code. The first...
From watching that fights video and just that quick introduction, it's so interesting because actually, although they're fighting, they do it in the most gentlemanly, fair way. It's not just like cheap shots that we're going to fight and then we're going to shake hands afterwards. Nothing, there's no other sport anything like this happens.
rule of the code is that they do not talk about the code. Whilst these rules exist amongst players, there is no official record of the rules of the code, except for this video. And you won't find these in any official rulebook. The NHL, or International Ice Hockey Federation, will always officially decline to comment about any code.
They just turn
This
a
is because
blind eye.
they don't want to officially admit that their sport that they govern isn't completely under their control. The players police the game as much as the referees do, and sometimes they police it a little too much. Rule number 2. If you do something bad, expect to pay the price. Let's say that you spitefully whack your opponent with a stick, and for some reason, the referees and linesmen completely missed it. No penalty is called against you, and you seemingly get away with it. I guarantee that the other team saw it, and they'll be gunning for you to avenge your crimes. There is now a giant bullseye on your back, with members of the opposing team looking to return the favour, one way or another.
One thing I hate about soccer, I'm a big soccer fan, but so many times I'm watching my team Rangers, there'll be cheap shots or bad tackles against it because they know the referee's not going to do anything or the player's not going to get any sort of retribution. If they could just handle it like this, it would cut most of that out, and they know that they're going to have to pay the price.
And if you manage to avoid punishment until the end of the game, just wait until you play them again. I guarantee they won't have forgotten.
They won't forget,
Your
yeah.
crime is not transient, and they won't stop headhunting you until you have paid the price. Rule
That's what I
number
like
3,
to hear. That's
do
fair
not
enough.
target stars. The best players on most teams are the star players that score goals and assists. There is an unwritten gentleman's agreement that stipulates that if you don't hit our star players, we won't hit yours. Let the stars score the goals and let everyone else do their respective jobs.
Kind of feel bad for the
Should you
average
unfairly
players.
target a star player, expect swift retribution as per rule number 2. Rule number 4. Ignore rule 3 if that star breaks rule 2. Sidney Crosby, a generational player that can score goals at will and will one day be enshrined into the Hockey Hall of Fame. A talent so immense that he doesn't need to dive, take cheap shots or hit anybody when they're down. But he does it anyway. This is totally unacceptable. Once you're a star player
Hockey
that
stick to the
resorts
balls.
these tactics, rule number 3 no longer applies, and you'll have a bullseye on your back just like everyone else.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's absolutely
Rule number 5,
fair.
no sucker punches. There is a proper decorum to challenge someone to a fight. However, sucker punching someone, i.e. punching them when they're down or not looking is an unacceptable way of doing so. This is cowardly, and blindsiding someone like this will result in the opposing team taking note. Expect swift retribution as per rule number 2. Lots of it. Rule number 6. Pick on someone your own size or bigger. Unless they instigate it, it is not acceptable to pick on someone who is significantly smaller than you, especially if they're skilled players that do not fight. The rule is simple. Pick on someone the same size or bigger. Constantly picking on a smaller opponent will result in someone significantly bigger coming after you.
These are like not only, I know they're unwritten rules, but these are the most perfectly formed rules I have ever heard. They all just make sense, and it's like, leaves no room for people just to be bad sportsmen. I mean, like, do I want to encourage violence? Probably not, but this deals with it so quickly and so swiftly, and it just cuts out the nonsense in sport. See it so much in soccer. The thing about star players, you always see the star players like Messi just getting absolutely abused by so many little players who they know they can get yellow carded, potentially sent off, and they want to just give a piece because this player's the best. This cuts all of that nonsense out, man. It's so awesome.
7. Verbally or physically agree. To challenge someone to a fight, it's important to stand square onto your opponent. Gesture with the hands, the helmet, or start shaking off your gloves. Dropping the stick is a clear indication that you want to throw down. It's fair to bait them physically or verbally, but if you're wearing a cage or full visor, it's proper etiquette to remove that prior to fighting your opponent.
Fantastic.
Fighting with a half visor may be morally acceptable in some, but not all, leagues.
Do you learn this from young, from being a child?
Back down. When challenged to a fight, especially if you have been guilty of a crime committed on the ice, it is seen as cowardly if you do not accept the challenge.
Yeah.
Backing down
he
is
ran
not
away.
cool.
Skated
You will
away.
not receive any brownie points with your teammates, and expect some form of retribution sometime during the game, legal or not. Rule number 9. You do not turtle. Once you have engaged in a fight, it is not acceptable to turtle, i.e. curl up in a ball to avoid punches. This is seen as cowardly.
Yeah.
You have accepted the challenge to fight, and fight you must. Rule number 10. It is acceptable to premeditate fights. It is deemed courteous to politely ask a player if he wants to fight. Exhibit A, Georges Larac.
You want to? Okay. Square up. Okay, good luck, man.
So casual. Good luck, man. It's so polite and
This
so
is the gentlemanly way of instigating
gentlemanly.
a fight,
That's the
and
word.
a fine example of good code etiquette. If a premeditated challenge is accepted, the gloves must come off and helmet visors removed before you fight.
And they both just
Respective
wait for it as
enforcers
well.
will actually remove their helmets completely and roll up their sleeves. This is to protect their opponent's hands as well as their own. This is the ultimate mark of respect. Rule number 11. You do not punch someone lying down. Once the fight has reached the ground, and one or both combatants have hit the ice, you must stop immediately. They are in a defenseless position. It is dishonorable to hit someone when they're down, especially if they can't defend themselves. The punishment and retaliation for breaking this rule is severe. Rule number 12. You do not fight goalies unless you are a goalie or they instigate it. Goalies, like stars, have a job to do, and it doesn't involve fighting. Unless they challenge you and it's obvious that they're doing so, leave them well alone. That said, it is acceptable for both goalies to fight each other, even if no incident has happened between them.
Does that happen often or not very often then? That must be quite interesting to see. Just going back to one I remember from earlier about talking about seeing the bigger guy fighting a bigger guy. I remember watching that NHL fights video. Some of the size of the guys that these smaller guys pick on or try to fight with is crazy, but you see the bravery in these players. This is what sets NHL apart from different sports, is like the sheer bravery from these guys.
Brawling is fair game. It is perfectly acceptable to retaliate to multiple infractions made by both sides.
It's like gang fighting.
If every player steps in at once, it's fair game to challenge someone completely unrelated to the original altercation.
This
and
should be
fight with
Scotland's
them.
national sport, man. We
This
love
is to
fighting.
prevent the opposing player from applying damage to your teammates and to temporarily eliminate them from the game by getting them, and yourself, sent to the penalty box. Rule number 14. Be wary of pests. A pest is a player whose sole job it is to antagonise and annoy you and your teammates in order to draw penalties. They will resort to anything from verbal abuse to underhand tactics to licking your face. They will most likely challenge you to a fight and then proceed to run away, leaving you with an instigator penalty. Be cautious when you challenge them to a fight, because that's exactly what they want you to do. Rule number 15. The golden rule. You stand up for your teammates, whether it's your job or not.
That's what it's all about. It inspires teamwork.
Or not.
Team
if you are
bonding.
on the ice and foul play happens, you are expected to stand up for your teammates, regardless of size, weight or star power. These players will stand up for you, through thick and through thin, and it is seen as cowardly to not return the favour. Teammates will notice if you don't have their back, so be wary because one day, it might be you that needs the help. The most interesting thing is that the code is open to interpretation. No two players have the exact same interpretation.
Kind of crowd going wild in that one.
But in general, these are the rules that ice hockey players live and die by, even if they're not written down. When regular rules aren't enforced properly, the code dictates how justice is served. In conclusion, there are some amazingly talented players in the sport of ice hockey, and there are people whose job it is to protect them. These men and women have given up being stars themselves, taken lower paychecks, significantly shortened their own careers, and risked their lives and future health, all to protect their teammates when the rules of the game fail to do so. These are noble warriors who will fight with honour and within the unwritten rules of the game. They deserve our absolute respect because they are the enforcers of the code.
Actually, it just gives me such a better understanding of the fights in NHL. I'd watched that video before and seen like some of the best fights, and it was really exciting to watch, but to understand it more deeply, it's just fantastic. I mean, there's so many unwritten rules there, but they all make complete sense. They all interlink and they all combine to make this one perfect thing. And I absolutely love it. It just makes me actually enjoy this sport even more. Tell me what you think about this. Thanks.